Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. Recently, Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did an interview with Libertarian Dave Smith on Dave's Part of the Problem podcast. And in this interview, Kennedy praised Communist China for its program in which it's flooding foreign regimes with aid in the form of building bridges and roads and other infrastructure, and which, although Kennedy didn't mention it, also involves giving grants and loans to these foreign regimes. Kennedy said that this is the way to build friendships in foreign countries and to build up the middle class in these countries. And so if he's elected president, he intends to establish this same type of massive socialist program on an international level. Now, of course, it's not a surprise that China would adopt this massive socialist program, but it's also not a surprise that Kennedy would. He's a big government, big liberal, welfare state Democrat. But an interesting twist to this is that Kennedy cites his uncle, President John Kennedy, as precedent. And what he's referring to is Kennedy's program, the Alliance for Progress. What happened was that Kennedy was competing against Fidel Castro in Cuba over who could get more friends in Latin America. So to do this, Kennedy establishes his own socialist program. He uses the IRS to seize money from the American people and then uses an agency to give the money to foreign regimes. And he says, this is the way to build the middle class, and this is the way to make friends. Exactly what Kennedy is saying with this massive socialist program that he wants to model after communist China. Well, of course, it did nothing of the sort. Socialism has proven to be the bane of mankind. This is what Democrats still do not understand. Just ask anybody in Cuba or Venezuela or North Korea. Socialism impoverishes people. And there's another factor here. China is not giving all this aid out of benevolence or to make friends. They're doing it for control. They know that once you put a foreign regime dependent on largesse that's being given to them, you've got them. You now control them. And the U.S. has long done that with foreign aid. They put a foreign regime on the foreign aid dole, and then the foreign aid regime becomes dependent and therefore subject to the control of the U.S. government. And so that's what this is all about, is control. Now, interestingly enough, Kennedy pointed out in this interview that he disagrees with Ron Paul on this issue. Well, of course he does. Ron Paul's a libertarian, not a socialist, and therefore it's not surprising that Ron Paul would not support this massive socialist program. There's an interesting twist also here. Former Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is also praising the communist totalitarian dictatorial regime in China, albeit for a different reason. He's praising them because of their harsh enforcement of the war on drugs. And it's the Chinese communists who have inspired Trump to now call for the death penalty in the drug war if he's restored to the presidency. So look at the irony. You've got a statist in the Democratic Party, Kennedy, and a statist in the Republican Party, Trump, both praising the same communist dictatorial regime. And so maybe this is why some people are exhorting Trump to make Kennedy his vice presidential candidate, so that they can both sit there and praise the Chinese communist regime, albeit for different reasons. The only way to raise people's standard of living and to establish peaceful and harmonious relations with the people of the world is through the libertarian principles of economic liberty and free trade and free markets. American businesses going into Latin America, opening up businesses, investing, hiring people. Same thing in reverse. Mexicans coming over here, doing business, hiring people in their businesses and so forth. And also American tourists and trade groups and cultural groups being free to travel and trade wherever they want, including Cuba, which of course both Democrats and Republicans have made a felony offense to do so. This is the way. Free trade, free markets, and economic liberty that is the key to establishing economic prosperity, peace, and harmony and friendships with the people of the world. I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. My campaign website is jacobforliberty.com.